time to paint the first character for my Tyranid 2K. Roll the music. Hello and welcome to yet another Scuffed Hammer video. This is the second video in a new painting series where I paint 2k points of Tyranids in a single year. So if you haven't seen the first one, I would recommend that you go check it out first, because there I establish a lot of the ground rules for how this series will work. But for now, let's get on for painting, and we'll talk more as I build. I decided to choose the Parasite of Mortex for my first character. And that was because it's a standalone character that won't be leading any units, and because it will be a great way to test out the main features of this army, since this list will feature flying units as much as possible. And I was right, it was a great first choice. This model was easy to put together, so easy that I didn't need to go and find the instructions online since this was a second-hand model. And that's a plus. I can only hope for the rest of the Tyranid range it will be that easy, since most of the models I have bought second-hand with no instructions. My only complaint, and this is coming from a Space Marine player, so don't put too much weight on it, is that it was very spindly and my chunky fingers struggled with all the sharp bits, trying to clean them off and stick them together without hurting myself too much. As I was building this model, I realized there weren't a lot of armor pieces, which is great because it creates an awesome opportunity to really showcase the design language I want to do with my character models as opposed to the bog standard infantry. As we move on to basing, I'll talk a little bit about the lore for the Parasite of Mortex, since I went into detail about the basing in the last video. The Parasite of Mortex bypasses defenses by flying over walls and using its barb-like tail tip to impregnate eggs of rippers into its still living victims, which then hatch and then rip and tear their way out of the body of its living host. I absolutely love that lore, and I love how well the rules on the tabletop reflect it. I am absolutely looking forward to just spawning a bunch of Ripper swarms because my Parasite of Mortex killed a bunch of guardsmen. And as you'll see in just a minute, I have found a way to incorporate the lore into its paint scheme. Now, time to use the airbrush. First of all, I'm going to hit it with a base coat, which is nice and easy and can be done with, as always, a rattle can or brush on primer, whatever your preference is. Now, I had to really make sure that I got into all the cracks and crevices and from all the angles with this model and the base as well, since this base in particular had a lot of overhangs and cracks and crevices. After this is the secret sauce for these character models, a metallic shifting paint. I've used this test model to just see how it will all look, and I ended up picking this bright gold brown, which actually is a bit more of a red than brown, and this goes on really well. Just a few thin passings over and it applies perfectly. I will be picking different colors for different character models as this series goes along, and I picked this particular color for two reasons. At a simple level, it looks like it's very green, which just screamed Parasite to me for whatever reason. At a more complex level, dare I even say probably a bit hoity-toity, is that I want all of these colours to represent a real-life nebula that we can see using telescopes. And this paint's colour almost perfectly matches the Wreath Nebula, also known as Barnard 3, almost perfectly. Now, this colour does come from infrared light, so it isn't how it would look in real life at the naked eye. And the final little detail that just screamed that I needed to pick this color was that inside it is interstellar clouds that are like stellar nurseries where baby stars are being born. And if that doesn't match the lore for this model to a T, I don't know what does. But moving on from my excited little rant, it's time for a bit more painting. Here I'm using some Black Legion contrast to pick out the small pieces of armor and its claws so that I can tie it into the look of the rest of the army and have that starry black sky look on its armor. This was a relatively easy process. contrast paints always are. It went down really well, it covered up perfectly with just one coat. A second coat was not needed at all, and it came out nice and smooth. Now at this stage I have zero plans on how I'm going to do the actual star effect, but hopefully something will come to me as I continue to paint the model. Are there any models that you would love to see in this army? Drop them down below in the comments, and maybe even suggest if they're a character, what nebula you would like to see them painted as. With the color shift paint and the armor panels picked out, the model is about 85% of the way done, and it's time to pick out the last final details. I decided to pick out all of the bones in the wing just to break up the monotony of that one big color shift, and I wasn't exactly too sure how I would be able to edge highlight and cause some discoloration. So instead, to try and make it blend in, I decided to clean up the edges with a bit of black contrast and then go over it with the metallic shifter paint just using a brush. In the end, this ended up looking alright, but I definitely have a way that I can improve it for the next model. The biggest issue is that the application of the color shift paint with a brush just looks messy and you can see it once it's dry. For some reason, it just didn't connect in my brain that you're supposed to use a black undercoat because it won't cover up the white, and that I could do the white first, fix up the messy details, and then use the airbrush to put the color shift on, and it would still show through with a better finished look. But that's just a lesson for next time, and that will make my next model just that little bit higher quality, and then I'll improve from there, and I'll improve from there, and by the time I've finished all of the characters for this army, I'll have perfected the process. At least hopefully I will. Now this video has been a lot of my yapping, so why don't I stop, let the music play for a little bit, and you just chill while I finish painting off these wing details. Alright, with that out of the way, it's time for the final details on the model, the starry armor. I tested out this piece of sponge on a test model and it seemed to work alright. Not perfect, but alright. So if you have any suggestions for how I could do it for the next character model, shoot them down in the comments below. Any insight would be greatly appreciated. And to finish it all up, it's time to paint the base rims. I'm starting with all black so that I can then come over with the color shifter paint and match it to the model. And with that last detail done, it's just about time for a final reveal. Well, that just about wraps us up for today's video. This model really raised my confidence levels moving forward with this project, not only with the character models and that my concept works, but also just with the wings and the theme of flying in general. I'm very happy with it, and this model has just confirmed that for me. Now it's time for the fun part, the update for how much the models have costed. I bought this model for $45 secondhand, whereas GW would have made me pay $75.50 for it brand new. So updating that with the table for the last video that I did, that means my total is $170, whereas GW would have made me pay $353. So I'm paying at this moment 48% of the total cost for a brand new army. If you like this series and you want to see more of it, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.